Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters most to you, the entrepreneur, and in year 8, we're taking head-on two of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. On the show tonight, to the influencers. First up is part 2 of an exclusive chat with LogiNext. We're also shining the spotlight tonight on SaffronStays. In part 1 of this conversation with Dhruvil Sanghvi of LogiNext, we'd spoken to him about funding, we'd spoken to him about what really LogiNext does, because it's in a very niche area. In fact, before we bring you a slice of that conversation here on part 2, a quick recap of what we discussed with him on part 1.
This was our Series B fundraise, which we started about 4 months ago, and we closed in December last year. Which we announced a couple of weeks ago itself. What we noticed is that currently Indian companies have a huge attention from global investors. There are tons of Chinese conglomerates, funds, London-based hedge funds, New York-based hedge funds, Valley-based venture capital firms are pouring in money, and there's a higher supply of money than demand of money. That's what they have been talking about.
In tonight's episode, we're bringing you a slice of that interview that I did with the company, talking about the data protection bill, what entrepreneurs should know about using a platform like LogiNext, and what advice he has for someone when it comes to expansion in this industry. Take a listen. Dhruvil, thanks so much for your time here in studio. Let's talk specific then to the domestic market. The first thing I do want to discuss is that I understand your customers are largely the bigger guys, you know, your Amazons, etc. But as the television platform that speaks to small businesses on a daily basis, I do want to understand what is the opportunity for a small retailer watching this interview to use a platform like yours. Why should they? What are the benefits, whether it's cost, whether there's anything else that they should use a platform like yours? How is it perhaps going to impact their business?
Great question. So for all the small or SMB customers, as we call it, retail, especially in retail is the most disrupted industry in today's world, right? Because of the whole, the whole noise around Amazon and the whole success of Amazon. But if you see what Amazon is doing, is just two things, right? They are building great customer experience, and they are trying to reach to customers as quickly as they can. What we have not seen in smaller businesses or SMB businesses is they still think daily frugality or optimization or cost efficiency as more important measure than an overall customer experience. What we help retailers, what we can help retailers do, a small scale retailer do, if they are shipping anything to their distributors or to their franchisees or to the end customer itself, there are a plethora of options to make goods available at a faster speed, with more transparency and with more predictability, and at a cheaper cost to your customers. That allows you to increase your revenue, because ultimately you don't want your customers to go to Amazon. You want your customers to come to your store. You want your customers to come to your website if you have one. So I think there's a more fast-moving thinking retailers need to have, and we can enable them with a ready to use software where they don't have to spend billions of dollars or millions of dollars or even few lakhs of rupees in India to build something like this, right? There is technology available with players like us where they can just buy it at a very affordable cost.
And it's on the cloud.
It's on the cloud. You don't have to pay anything upfront. It's a monthly fees that you have to pay. You can, if nothing else, you can try it for free for 15 days, right? And then see it for yourself if this is really making sense for you or not. And I think that technology backbone and running the company around better customer experience with the use of tech is what can position retailers to compete against these large scale players like Amazon and Flipkarts of the world.
Okay, is it possible for you to put a number to the kind of benefits that they could see, the cost benefits perhaps that they could see?
I think overall, usually we have seen retailers or any SMB retailer which gets on board on our software, in the first 6 months, they see as high as 20% efficiency gain in their shipping cost. So if you have any business where you have a distribution cost attached to it, there's definitely going to be close to 20% reduction in the cost of logistics, which directly adds to your bottom line, number one. Number two, we have seen the customer NPS, which we capture on our platform, goes dramatically high, and usually, and that is the biggest factor actually, it goes high as 50% every year, where we capture something called as customer reviews on how they like to purchase and receive those goods, which they were receiving from the same retailer, but now they are receiving in a better way. Sure. And that better way kind of increases the customer stickiness year on year. So I think there's a customer experience improvement and a cost reduction by 50% and 20% respectively.
Okay, what did it take for you to raise that early series of funding? What did you perhaps have to do? How did you need to get yourself ready to really, raise those funds?
I think the first thing to do is to build a strong backbone of your fundamentals, right? And how do you position that? For us, we raised our first round from Indian Angel Network in 2015. We raised the second round, Series A, from Paytm in 2016. And this was the third round, which was done in 2019 December, from marquee investors like Tiger Global Management and SteadView Capital. Across the investors, which are different kinds of investors. One is an angel group, second is a corporate, third is a hedge fund, fourth is a venture capital fund. Fundamentally, what they want is how scalable your business model is, because they are in with you if you really want to make it huge. So how do you really create fundamentals of your business model which can replicate success over years and truly make it a huge business? So that's number one is required. Sure. And number two is attracting a market size which is also large. If you're raising money, there are two types of businesses. One, which are investable businesses by a venture capitalist, and second, which are not. Both are great businesses, but you need to understand as an entrepreneur which category you fall into. Okay. If you are in a more of a lifestyle business, which is not a large market size, or extremely competitive, where you may have a very small chunk of the market, you may not be an investable business for investors. Versus if you're really a new age or trying to disrupt something, more innovative idea, there's not too much of competition. Some competition is good, but too much of it is a crowd and a large market to tap into. That's when they want to fund you so that you can give them heavy returns. Some of our early investors, they made more than 20 times their money in 4 years. Sure. On our company, on our stock. So being able to think from day one on how you will return that money to them, and do you really have a business which will scale beyond a point on its own to be able to retain such large returns to your investors. Sure. Is very important. And sometimes in that thinking, some companies fail as well, right? So it's very important on how do you think risk mitigation, and having a plan of risk mitigation, scalability, all this together, and how do you really pitch it to investors in a more packaged storytelling manner is what excites them. Sure. It's not necessarily only one thing or other, but a combination of all these 3 or 4 things. That's what a trend we saw across these 3 or 4 investors. Okay,
a lot of experts who come on a show, advise our entrepreneurs to bootstrap in the first couple of years. They say, don't bring in an external, expert till you've managed to cut your teeth. Your experience has been different. So how have you managed to, sort of manage all of these different sets of investors on board?
Right. No, I think that's a very well said sentence, and I think I fully agree to that. I've also seen and mentored some entrepreneurs who just want to raise money. Yeah. But knowing when to raise money is more important than how much money you raise actually. We also were bootstrapped for first 12 months. There are stories who have been bootstrapped for 5 years. Yeah. There are stories who have been even more successful businesses than us who have never raised money. So raising money is not necessarily a success criteria. Okay. It's up to your business model. Do you really need that much money, or do you need any money at all? If you're not ready for investor management, do not raise it. Okay. Because if you're not ready for investors, you may end up pitching to a lot of investors and you may never receive funding. You will end up getting distracted from your business. You will end up spending tons of time just chasing investors. And investors will come to know immediately as soon as they meet you that you are not ready to receive my funding. Sure. And that may be more detrimental to business than beneficial. Sure. Also, sometimes you may end up getting lucky with an investor, and if you don't know how to manage that investor, when you take money, you also take certain responsibility towards them. And if you have no experience or no previous thought on how to manage that relationship, you may actually end up driving your board level relationship into a dispute, which can lead to even the end of the company for that matter. And I've actually met and heard these stories myself, Unfortunately, there are entrepreneurs who, not by intentionally but unintentionally, somehow drive themselves into that direction.
Sure.
So yes, overall, very, very important to know when to raise money, then, and whether you need money or not, then to just raise money and how much money you raise.
Sure. Last couple of questions. We're running out of time on this interview. First is, I do want to talk about the Data Protection Act that we're seeing is being talked about in India. It's been, operationalized in a lot of countries across the world. Is it having an impact on your business?
Huge impact, because we are fundamentally a data company, right? Because majority of our processing on our platform, from a shipment optimization perspective, cost optimization perspective, happens because of data. And this data is not of a consumer data. It's of different parameters of drivers and and whatnot. Overall, globally, after the GDPR got successfully implemented, every state and federal governments are taking active initiatives to publish these regulations. And most regulations are around how do you educate the customer whose data you are owning, and how are you putting the control back into their hands and not into your hands. We recently got compliant to something called a CCPA, which is California Consumer Protection Act. Very similar to the one which Singapore government recently implemented. It's very similar to what Indian government is planning to implement very soon. And all these are around allowing your users or your customers to even come on your website and tell you that I don't want you to own any data point about me. And you have to be compliant from your data architecture perspective to be able to give that flexibility to the customer, where they can come, they can just entirely wipe everything that you know about them, and your business still has to run. And I think that's what a huge impact is. We are spending tons of time, money, management bandwidth just to be compliant to this one, and I think we respect these regulations a lot. India absolutely should have it, because Indian customer, the more difficult part about India is Indian customers are using majority of the tech owned by Chinese or American companies, and not having control on these organizations and these enterprises can lead Indian consumers to be at a huge risk. And that's why I think it's very, very important, and it will, over the next 5 to 10 years, we will see these regulations coming in and most companies abiding by it.
Our second influencer tonight is SaffronStays. That's on the other side of this break. Do stay tuned. Back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, our second influencer is SaffronStays. Our second influencer tonight is with SaffronStays. I caught up with the company to understand what exactly it is and which niche they play into, what their fundraising plans are, and also what the way forward is looking like. Take a listen. Devendra, thanks very much for your time here in studio. And
thank you, pleasure.
It's always exciting to talk to businesses that are doing something different in industries that are fairly well established, tourism, hospitality, fairly well established, but SaffronStays is doing something very niche in that space.
Yes, we are.
Let's kick today's interview off by talking about your model, how you stumbled upon it as a husband-wife duo who are first-time entrepreneurs.
Yes.
How did you decide this was the market for you?
So both of us are career professionals. So she was a chartered accountant, corporate banker. I was a partner in Ernst & Young, cybersecurity specialist, built that whole practice out.
Sure.
But the reason why we got into this space, we saw a niche where in the luxury segment, in the hospitality industry, we figured that vacation homes or private estates or private villas of the rich and famous of Mumbai or Pune or Delhi, these are unlocked, unutilized idle assets. So for example, you cross across the harbor to Alibag and you'll probably find $1 million estates of the rich and famous of Mumbai, right? And are they using it? No, they're not using it. And people like us who probably have not been lucky enough to inherit these, or probably wise enough not to buy or invest in properties like this, we want to stay in these homes. And we figured that we are a perfect matchmaker between somebody who has these homes but assets are not being utilized, and somebody on the other side who wants to stay in these homes. Having said that, we also realized in India, we don't like to drive our own cars, we like drivers.
Sure.
So the homeowners are not interested to take calls at 11 o'clock from a guest. And at the same time, the guest is looking for certainty of experience, which meant that there was a need for a credible party which could handle everything full stack, which is market, manage, operate, brand. So it's a hospitality game and not just a marketplace.
Okay. Yeah. What can you tell us then specifically for someone who's watching this interview about the trends or the preferences of consumers from these markets? What insights can you share based on your experience?
So it's very interesting. We recently surveyed around 600 plus Mumbaikars and Punekars across age groups, and we realized there were a few key things that came out. First, all of them said water. Water equal to holiday, or holiday equal to water, which means the presence of a river or a lake or a beach, and if nothing exists, then a pool. And if you don't have a pool or any of the other three, they don't just choose the home.
Sure.
Okay. Second, we found, contrary to what you and I have been fed, that everybody is looking for an experiential, lean-in holiday. Most of the Mumbaikas are so fried that they just want to do nothing holiday.
Yeah.
They just want to go to a villa and just be. Just do nothing, right? The third thing we realized is proximity is very important. So quick 2-hour comeback, because we are starved of time. We are money rich but time poor. And fourth, we realized is that most of the people are very, very value conscious. So they want luxury, they want privacy, but they want it at a particular price. And we figured that price is a lovely band between 6,000 to 9,000 per room per night. Okay. And anything in this band is hotcakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you look at, at a time when a lot of people are talking about, say, rural experiences for your urban city dwellers, etc. If you're looking at expanding your offering, is that perhaps something on the cards?
No, it is not. Okay. We cater to large groups. We cater to people wanting to celebrate occasions together.
Sure.
We are catering to audience sizes between 12 to 20 or probably even 30, which means they want to rent out a few villas together. And they just want to celebrate a very private occasion. Sure. So it's somebody's 25th wedding anniversary, it's somebody's 50th birthday that they want to ring in, or dog's 5th birthday that they want to celebrate, or the 5th birthday of their child, pre-wedding cocktail parties, mehndi functions. So we realized that people are desperate to get out of the city. There are very few venues inside the city of Mumbai and Pune which have these lovely banqueting facilities which are in the open, in the open backdrop. We find that the ticket size of these is very large. It sweats the asset beyond just the rooms, because your lawns, your gardens, your magical backdrops that you have in the form of lakes and starlit skies, they're totally exploited. And we found that as a huge blue ocean for us, where our competitors are looking at selling rooms, but we are selling experiences, but for celebrating private occasions of our guests.
Okay. I want to understand your USP at a time when, at one hand you have the likes of Unoyo, etc., Nataj, that are looking at this market, have either entered or are entering. Plus you have smaller companies that are exploiting this, creating those curated experiences. How do you differentiate yourself?
So we've differentiated ourselves in pretty much all of these matters. It's a combination of all. The group size and hence the inventory that gets created for that group size, the budget ticket size and hence the kind of inventory that's placed exactly in that sweet spot, or the need for amenities like pool, etc., or the need for services. And to top it all, we will curate all of this this, stitch it up all together as a solution. So we'll ensure that there's good lighting, we'll ensure that there is a karaoke system, there's DJ, there's all of that to complete your experience. So we are not just a place. We add everything that you want to make it a complete celebration. For example, we've recently launched our corporate vertical, and we never realized that we would be completely inundated with requests, because corporates in Mumbai are completely tired of the hotels. Small teams don't want to get lost in a large hotel of 500 rooms, right? And even the senior directors of companies, CEOs, want to have a very private villa in which they can sit and do a Carlsberg style pool strategy meeting, right? And we stumbled upon these market opportunities without even, and actually the market told us. Inquiries started coming in that direction. We quickly pivoted, and now we have a separate vertical. It's not just a product.
Sure.
It's a vertical that we've created.
Sure. Okay, let's quickly wind this interview down. One,
Yes.
I do want to talk about the size of the homestays market in the country. What's it right now? What sort of projections perhaps can you share with us in terms of where you see it heading?
Yes. Okay, so if you look at the supply side, and that's what dictates the market, because demand is insatiable. There are close to 200,000 ultra HNI families in India, and that's growing every 5 years. It's doubling every 5 years, which means we are looking at least 500,000 ultra HNI families coming up in the next 5 to 7 years. Assume 10% of them have these private homes or vacation homes. That's your market, which effectively means that you're looking at anywhere between 20,000-30,000 homes at a minimum. And if you look at the way Indians are buying homes or real estate internationally, so people are going to London and buying homes, people are going to Southeast Asia and buying homes, people are investing in South Africa. That's the other international market that we're targeting, Indian-owned homes outside of the country for travelers who are traveling to those countries and want to have Indian hospitality, Indian food.
Okay. How did you manage to convince investors? And you've raised quite a bit of funding.
Yes.
In a market which is so crowded, if I can call it that. What was your experience? How did you do that?
So we were lucky to have an investor who, as their name suggests, Sixth Sense, invests based on their sixth sense and gut feel. And they pretty much invested in the brand. They pretty much invested in a great team that they saw. And it was not just Tejas and me who are co-founders, but they saw the entire team, interacted with them, and figured that that's a great team to bet on. And they realized that here's a product that's going to stand out, build slow and steady over a period of time, and not necessarily burn out within 2 to 3 years. So we have entered this with a very conscious game of being a credible player for the next 10 to 15 years, build a legacy in the hospitality space. If you notice, there are only probably 2 or 3 large premium luxury brands in the space of hotels. Taj, Leela's, ITC, or maybe Oberoi's. But there is no fourth luxury name. Everything that we hear of in the hospitality space is in the budget category. Yeah. We want to occupy that space, so that fifth credible luxury hospitality company, which happens to be in the space of vacation homes.
Thanks very much for your time here on the show, Devendra.
Thank you very much. Lovely.
Completely out of time on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any feedback for us, our contact details is up on your screens in just a moment. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.